Well, how are you guys doing today? If you looked at me and asked me which villain, I would be forced to reevaluate after new material came out. The villain I didn't have pegged to see more of from my massive anime villains tier list would of course been Agnologia. Of course, I jest. Agnologia didn't actually come back, just his arm for some reason. The only real change would have been probably moving Slur down to the irreconcilable piece of garbage that single-handedly reduced Sakamoto Days to almost overlord level of bad that has found itself in tier. I hate Slur. I will make a video probably on him and why he is absolutely one of the worst villains after Overlord. The other villain that I would have had to reevaluate would have been, of course, All for One. In my defense, I had just watched him devolve into a single cell and thus thought he was dead and wasn't going to come back. But they did bring him back, and in doing so, they broke the shonen villain barrier. If you watched my Muzan video, you would know that most villains in manga just kind of suck with a few notable exceptions, mainly Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and Black Clover. Actually, Black Clover villains aren't great. It's just that the show itself is so good that they can be good just by being in Black Clover. I will be making a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood video. I'm working on the script. It will be decently long because there are 8 or so villains you need to talk about in order to truly understand that. So I want to talk about All for One and why he is one of the best pure evil villains since probably like Bellows. And if you know how much I love Bellows, you know that this is big praise. Why All for One works is threefold. First, his design. Second, his interactions with other characters. And finally, his personality. First, One for All might have the singular best build-up to a final design ever. His design is kept in the shadows throughout the first season, and it isn't until the end of the second season that we get to see his true face. Also, All for One might have the best villain theme ever, and while his mask design is cool, his face is nightmarishly uncanny, seeing as it lacks any physical features. It's just his smile and sort of divots where his eyes should be. It's great. Then you get to his first transformation. The next design is him without his mask, which is just the first design with a respirator. So it's not all that cool, but it's also not bad. And then we hit his season 7 design, and this is the best mask design that All for One gets. This is where his mask takes on more skull-like features, but it's also less bulky than the season 2 version, so it, I think, looks a lot better. It took everything great about the initial design, but made it sleeker and more skeletal, while also improving his fashion and giving him a nice little vest. Very, very stylish. Then you get the Golden Smoke design, which looks fantastic. So at that point, all the transformations look really good, and they've all gotten better. And then we hit a rough patch, and this is again why I sort of placed All for One as a low tier villain, because as he gets younger and younger, his appearance looks so much dumber, both in terms of appearance and animation. And then he becomes a baby, and then I get violently upset. So that's where I thought his story ended. But then we get his 2 best design. First, the red smoke and debris giant version, and the final form of Shigaraki for One. This final form is so unbelievably cool, and this is when the show just goes full body horror. Don't get me wrong, the snakehead things that All for One summons have always towed the line, but the final form, SFO, or Shigaraki for One, is the culmination of that. He has the gangly limbs, the hair that always stands on end, and those red eyes, and the hand that is made of his own flesh, and the weird back fingers that come out of his back. Don't know where I was going with that statement. But all of them make this transformation well worth the wait. And the fact that Shigaraki can still be heard screaming from the mouth of All For One is truly horrifying. He actually kind of reminds me of the one dude from Dan Da Dan Da Dan. If you know, the running guy. Why can't I think of his name? Momo's friend. Anyway, the next big idea that makes All For One a great villain is the interactions he has with some of the characters. All For One has some of the best conversations and fights in any anime, in my opinion. First, the fight with Endeavor and All For One is fantastic. Endeavor is one of my favorite characters and is someone who always struggles to be better. Conversely, All For One is always attempting to drag others down. The conversation and fight these two have, where Endeavor is forced to overcome his own inner demons while confronting All For One, in a fight with some of the coolest moments in cinematography in the entire show, is truly fantastic. Second, All For One's interactions with his brother are very good. All For One has this twisted love for his brother, and his entire goal throughout the entirety of the show is just to get the power his brother held, sort of to be reunited with him. So in a way, All For One did love his brother, because when his brother's soul disappears, you get what I think is the first real emotion out of All For One. And it's great because you get to see him break down and realize that suffering is necessary, but I'll talk more about it in a minute. The last interaction that makes him unique is his relationship with All Might. All Might never gives up throughout all their battles, and because of All Might's strength, their interactions are intriguing. All For One continuously tries to break All Might, and you get some fantastic back and forth between the two characters. But because of All Might's inherent strength, All For One never feels like he gets to struggle and feel the pain of losing until he fights Izuku Midoriya, which is just some great acting and stuff, and then he realizes that. That's part of the fact that makes All For One a great villain, is the fact that he likes to drag others down, and when he's fighting All Might, you get to see him at his most sadistic, and it's some really cool stuff there. Also, his amazing internal monologue during his final fight is great. You get to see how the loss of his brother has made him stronger and more resilient. This is part of the genius of All For One's character. His inability to give up while simultaneously acknowledging the fruitlessness of his actions makes him a brilliant foil to the shonen never give up hero. He mimics that never give up attitude while lacking the conviction that the heroes possess to do good. He acknowledges this when talking about how Midoriya's weakness is actually a strength of his. And that's what I love most about this villain, is that moment where he goes, yeah, it's the fact that I've never lost that made me weak. But now that I have lost, I've become stronger. Anyway, let's talk about personality. Despite what Season 7 tries to gaslight you into thinking, and that being that All For One is just a lonely man who should be sympathetic, who you should sympathize for, he's not. All For One is the one true demon lord of manga. I've seen many demon lords, or at least many who claim that title, in manga, manhwa, anime, etc. Most of them are isekai protagonists who do the bare minimum of self-defense to gain this title, a la Slime. What's his face? Rimuru from Reincarnated as a Slime. And this is why I love All For One. He scratches the itch of a true demon lord. Sure, his character might be sympathetic at his core, but he's also so irredeemable. His actions are truly monstrous. For example, forcing Shigaraki to kill his entire family by giving him a malformed quirk, all in order to create a perfect vessel for himself. He is a warped man whose ego has turned him into a monster. Any sympathy that could have been held for him have been destroyed by his heinous acts. This grand fallen king whose rage has warped him into a beast feels like the biblical description of a demon. And that's why I love him so much. His cruel, sadistic personality makes him a true demon lord. And All for One became one of my favorite shonen villains after that final season. I can't really even do him justice in this video, so go watch MHA. It's worth it, just for All for One. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.